أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن أول بيت وضع للناس للذي ببكة مبارك وهدى للعالمين بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم الخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح يا فتاح يا فتاح صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم الأمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given me and you the ability and tawfiq to participate in this gathering, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a source of guidance for all of us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering one of the means of our entry to Jannah, inshallah. We started a new chapter of our Seerah series in which we were talking about the rebuilding of the Kaaba. In our last session, we spoke about how Kaaba was destroyed by fire and the flood in a year before it was rebuilt. And when they decided to rebuild the Kaaba, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided them the best material available. And when they started rebuilding the Kaaba, how they reached a point where the trouble brew. And after that trouble brew, because they were raising the corners of the Kaaba, and when they reached the level of black stone, then all these sub-tribes of Quraysh, they had this discussion and they wanted to resolve this issue, that who is going to put the black stone in. And the black stone was a special stone, so all the tribes, they put their foot down and they said, black stone belong to us, we are going to put the black stone. And because of that reason, the trouble grew and the fight became so intense that for 5 days the construction on Kaaba stopped. There was a heated argument between them. They almost reached to blows on the 5th day when they all were in the Kaaba, in the vicinity of the Kaaba. Then a Buzurg, a person by the name of Abu Umayyah bin Mughira, who was the oldest person in Makkah alive at that time, he resolved that issue by saying that whoever will enter through that main door, the first person who enters through that main door, we will give that issue to him and he will resolve that issue. And you all know who entered through that main door. It was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how beautifully he resolved that issue, that he brought a garment, a sheet, and then he put the black stone in, and then he invited all the representatives of the tribes to come and lift the black stone, and they all lifted the black stone simultaneously, all the leaders. They lifted the black stone simultaneously, and then Prophet ﷺ himself, he put the black stone back into that location. So that's how Prophet ﷺ resolved that issue. Now, a very, very important discussion that hopefully you will love, inshallah. I won't take more than 15 minutes. I will try to stay true to my words, inshallah. And I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me the clarity of speech so that I can convey to you and I can address this issue in the best way possible, inshallah. When they rebuilt the Kaaba, they made certain changes in the construction of the Kaaba. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed those changes to become permanent. So more or less there were 4 changes that they made in the reconstruction of the Kaaba. How many changes? 4 changes. The first change, which was the most drastic, or which was the most major change, you know the story that we know, that the material that they have got, if you remember the story behind it, that the Caesar of Rome, he sent this best material to one of the cities of Yemen because the church was destroyed and he wanted to finance the reconstruction of that church. So he sent the best material to Yemen, but that ship which was taking that material, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a different plan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a wind off the coast of Jeddah which caused that ship to crash and then hardly make it to the coast of Jeddah. And when they make it to the coast of, it used to be called, by the way, Jeddah, not Jeddah. Now it is called Jeddah, but at that time it used to be called Jeddah. And when they reached the coast of Jeddah, obviously the ship is destroyed. They cannot go back to Yemen. They cannot go back to Rome. So now the merchandise that they have, the stock that they have on the ship, they set up all that merchandise for sale because they want to get some money. So when Quraysh got to know about it, they all went to Jeddah, bought that material, the most fancy material, the fancy wood, fancy marble, best carpenters. They hired the carpenters, and then they came back to Makkah and then they rebuilt the Kaaba. When they were rebuilding the Kaaba with that fancy material that they bought from Caesar of Rome, originally it's from Caesar of Rome, when they were building it, they were building the foundation with that material. The fancy material they have, woods and marbles, they are building the Kaaba, the foundation of the Kaaba with that material. The roof of the Kaaba they are making with normal material of Makkah, regular material of Makkah. Why they are doing it? Number one, because they want to build the foundation with that material so that they can solidify the structure. So next time when the water comes in, next time when the flood comes in, there is going to be a strong structure. That's why they want to build the foundation with that material. Second of all, they want to build the foundation with that material, because when they got the material, they calculated it. As soon as they calculated it, they realized that we cannot make the foundation as big as it was originally. Remember, the Kaaba originally was rectangle. It was never square. The original Kaaba was the Kaaba of Ibrahim A.S. When he built the Kaaba in shape, Kaaba was rectangle. So the door, the place where the door of the Kaaba is and the back side of the Kaaba, both of these sides were double the length of its width, if you know what I mean. That was the structure of the Kaaba originally, and that was the structure of Kaaba when Prophet ﷺ was growing up until he was 35 years old. Now when they were rebuilding the Kaaba, they calculated their material, and then they realized that we can only make it square. We cannot make a rectangle. We don't have enough material. So the only thing we can do is that we can make it a square. But what they did is that the other two angles, the other two corners, they marked them with the posts. And they put a barrier over there that you call hatim. They put the barrier over there, which to this day is still there. You all brothers know about hatim. They made it. Probably Ibn Ishaq rahmatullah alayhi, he mentioned in his book of Seerah, he said probably the intention was that this is what we can do right now. This is the material that we have. This is the budget that we have. At this moment, that's how we can build the Kaaba. But hopefully in 100 years time, 200 years time, when people will decide to rebuild it, they will have enough funds. And they are going to build it the way Ibrahim A.S. built it. So they built it like this in a square form because they didn't have enough material. But they said hopefully inshallah when it will be rebuilt, people will rebuild it from its original corners. So that's how they built it. But the intention was not to make this change permanent. That was not the intention. The second change, that was the first change. So everyone understood the first change? The Kaaba was rectangle and now it's
square.
The second change was Kaaba was never as high as it became. Kaaba was never as, even in our times now, in our time, Kaaba is actually much more higher than it was before. But originally, according to one narration mentioned by Ibn Ishaq, again, this is my main material, this is my main source from where I prepare the Seerah lectures. He says that in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the time of the early life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Kaaba was as high as a camel. Kaaba was as high as a camel, so around 15 feet. But when they rebuilt it, they doubled it. So it became like 30 feet, 30, 40 feet. And now it's 60 to 70 feet. So it's very tall. When you look at it, it's very tall. But originally Kaaba was short. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because remember it's a rectangle. So the sides are big, the foundation are big, but the roof is small. Now they are building the foundation with the fancy material, so they can only build a square. But the roof they are building with what? Normal material. So they can make it tall. They can make it higher. So that's what when they were rebuilding it, they doubled the height of the Kaaba. And from there the concept began of making a Kaaba as a tall structure. So to this day, Kaaba is a tall structure, right? So the concept began from them. This was the second change. What was the third change? Which is a very interesting change. When they built the door of the Kaaba, and by the way, this was Banu Abdul Manaf who was building that side of the Kaaba. Do you remember when they started building the Kaaba, they divided all the subgroups of Quraysh into how many groups? Four groups. And each group got the wall according to their own prestige and respect. Banu Abdul Manaf got the highest prestige, so they got the most important. The wall that they are building contains the door of Kaaba. Now they are building the Kaaba, that side of the Kaaba, but when they built the door of the Kaaba, they built it in the middle of the wall and not on the ground, so that everyone could enter it. Before it was on the ground. Now they built it in the middle of the wall. Why? Because they wanted to make it elite. And they themselves wanted to have the authority to decide who can enter the Kaaba and who cannot enter the Kaaba. So when they were rebuilding it, they did something that was never done before. They made the door higher. They had the keys. They had the ladder. So whoever wants to get into Kaaba, first they have to get the approval of Banu Abdul Manaf. That's what they did. And to this day, the door of the Kaaba is high. It's not on the ground. To this day. So that was the third change. Fourth and the final change, which was a very logical change, a common sense, a very rational change, they made a water spout around Kaaba. Because remember, the first time Kaaba was destroyed, yes, it was destroyed by fire, but mainly it was destroyed because of
Flood.
the roof caved in because of the flood, because of the water. So now they built a water spout around Kaaba, and you still see the water spout around Kaaba. And obviously it's not the same water spout, but the concept came from them. These were the four major changes that happened when they rebuilt the Kaaba. Let's review them again. Number one, the Kaaba was rectangle, they made it square. Number two, Kaaba was small, they made it higher. Number three, Kaaba, the door of Kaaba was on the ground, but they made it higher. And number four, they made a water sprout around Kaaba. Now, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, almost 20-25 years later after this incident, he conquered Makkah again. Right? When he conquered Makkah again, he came into Makkah and he said to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, very well-known hadith mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, authentic narration. Prophet ﷺ said, if it was not because of the fact that your people just recently embraced Islam, they are new to Islam, I would destroy this Kaaba and I would made it originally how it was built by Ibrahim A.S. And I would made the door accessible to everyone. If it was not because of the people who just accepted Islam, who just embraced, they are new to Islam. If it was not because of them, I would make the Kaaba the way, I would destroy this Kaaba and made it on the original pillars of Ibrahim alayhi and I would make this door of Kaaba accessible to everyone. But because they are new to Islam, I don't want to cause any kind of problems for them. They are new to Islam. SubhanAllah, I was thinking about this hadith that how how lenient Prophet ﷺ was. That when it comes to the Muslims, especially to the new Muslims, he's ready to compromise this principle of Islam, this big thing of Islam. He said, okay, I'm not going to make it because it's going to cause problem. I wanted to, but I'm not going to do it. Why? Because it can cause problems for the new Muslims. So he didn't do it. Now what happened in the times of Umayyad dynasty, early ages of Umayyad dynasty, there was a lot of civil war going on. If you look into history of Islam, you will know about it. When Umayyads came into power, there was basically, the young boys are sitting here so they don't know what Umayyads. There were two main families who were at loggerhead, who were rivals. They were the Abbasis and they were Umayyads. So these two main dynasties of Muslims, they were at loggerheads. Sometimes they had some political issues between them. When Umayyad came into power, there were lots of civil wars going on. And during that time, one of a very small group of Muslims, they broke away from the main dynasty of Umayyad. And they made their own small khilafat in Makkah. One small group broke away from the main group of the Muslims and they made their own khilafat in Makkah. They made their own dynasty, you can say, in Makkah. And this group was led by Abdullah bin Zubair, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who is the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu. So do you understand the picture here? The main dynasty is Umayyads. This small group, they broke away from the Umayyads and they made their own mini khilafat, mini state, where? In Makkah. Who is the leader of that mini state? Abdullah bin Zubair. Who is Abdullah bin Zubair? The companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this happened in the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Hajjaj bin Yusuf was the most oppressing ruler that this ummah has ever seen. You know, we talk about the rulers of Sham and Yemen nowadays and how bad they are, but just listen to what he did. He was a tyrant, the most oppressing, the most tyrant ruler that we have ever seen. Now when Abdullah bin Zubair took over Makkah, he took over Kaaba. This hadith reached Abdullah bin Zubair. He was a righteous person, he was a pious person. So he said to himself, okay, I'm going to destroy the Kaaba and I will build it the way Prophet ﷺ wanted to build it. So he destroyed the Kaaba. He built it again, rectangle, with no hatim. Rectangle Kaaba, and he made he built the door of the Kaaba again on the ground. He brought it down on the ground. That's how he did it. But then Hajjaj bin Yusuf, he took over Makkah again. Obviously this was a small group. Hajjaj bin Yusuf was the main dynasty. So he took over Makkah again and he destroyed Kaaba by throwing stones in. Big stones. Big stones. They used to call, they had this machinery back in the days, military machinery, which used to be worked by a lever and a rope. So they would throw these big stones through that machinery. They used that machinery to destroy Kaaba, big stones. He took over Kaaba by throwing stones into Kaaba, which destroyed Kaaba only because he wanted to get Abdullah bin Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and then he crucified Abdullah bin Zubayr on a plank in front of Kaaba. He crucified Abdullah bin Zubayr. He was a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the son of a companion. His mother was companion. His brother was companion. And this person, Hajjaj, he was a mental case. He crucified Abdullah bin Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhu in front of the Kaaba. So now what happened is that, we're not talking about Hajjaj bin Yusuf, the point that I'm trying to make is that when he took over Kaaba, he destroyed Kaaba. And now he has to rebuild it. So now when he has to rebuild it, obviously he doesn't want to build it the way Abdullah bin Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhu built it. So when he rebuilt the Kaaba, he built it the way Jahili Arabs built it in their time. Again, square with hatim, with the door higher up. That's what he built it. Now later on in the time of Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Malik, do you all know about Imam Malik, the four main Imams? Yeah. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. In the time of Imam Malik, the Khalifa at that time, he went up to Imam Malik and he said to Imam Malik, should we destroy this Kaaba? Should we make it the way Prophet ﷺ wanted to make it? Because this is not the way Prophet ﷺ wanted to make it. Should we destroy it and make it again? And subhanAllah, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi said, I don't want Kaaba to become a toy so that any king can come along and put his desires and whim on it. This is what we call fiqh. This is what we call understanding. He said, I don't want Kaaba to become a toy so that any king can come along and put their whims or desires on it. So he said that we don't need to change it. It has already happened to it, so leave it like this. So that was the verdict of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. And then from the time of Hajjaj bin Yusuf, Kaaba has been upon the foundations of the Jahili Arabs, square in form with the hatim, with the door higher up. My time is over, but inshallah, the symbolism that we learn, it's not only about the stories. I'm not here just to tell you the stories. The lessons that we learn from the story, the symbolisms that we learn from the story, that's what we learn inshallah in our next session next week. So I will request all of you brothers kindly to make time, come and participate. Consistency, my brothers, is a key here. So hopefully inshallah we will be able to maintain this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.